Maybe you don't know how to put it into words, but your body has been trying to speak to you for a long time. It warns with a weight on the head that comes out of nowhere, a tightness in the chest that seems to have no reason, a fatigue that even the deepest sleep cannot erase. You feel, and you know it's not just physical. For those who are chosen, these signals are not coincidences. They are codes, messages that your spiritual field translates into the only language the body understands: pain, pressure, discomfort. What medicine calls normal in tests, you recognize as something isn't right. And indeed it isn't. It's just that your field wasn't made to live closed off. It is open, sensitive, connected. That is a gift, but also a responsibility. The world around you doesn't always understand. They'll say it's anxiety, stress, imagination. Yet deep down, you feel that something bigger is happening. And it's true. Every symptom that seems inexplicable is a reaction to energies you pick up without asking, to emotions that aren't yours but come in as if they were. When you don't know how to cope, that becomes weight. Today, you will understand where this invisible pain comes from and why it chooses you to manifest. It's not a punishment, not a weakness, not madness. It's functioning. It's part of the structure of those born to perceive beyond. And from the moment you understand, the pain begins to change. I am George, and here we talk about what most avoid. Subscribe to the channel. There is a whole path for those who chose to see beyond the obvious, and it starts now. There are pains that do not reveal themselves in exams, and yet are as real as any medical diagnosis. Those who are chosen know this experience well. It is that sudden pressure on the head, the tightness in the chest that arises for no explanation, the exhaustion that even a good night's sleep cannot resolve. Often, the search for answers leads to consultations and tests that come back normal, but the sensation remains alive, persistent, silent. The sensitive body functions like a radar that is always on, picking up signals that pass unnoticed to most. This uptake is not optional. It happens naturally. The chosen notices changes in the environment, emotions of other people, and even vibrations from places. When this amount of stimuli exceeds the filtering capacity of the energetic field, the body reacts, turning the excess into physical symptoms. It is not fantasy. It is a physiological reaction to vibrational overload. It is common that, when trying to explain what they feel, the chosen encounters disbelief or devaluation. They hear phrases like, "This is psychological," or "You're stressed." These responses, though well-intentioned, can generate doubt and guilt. The person begins to think they might be overreacting or making things up. Yet the truth is that the body is being honest. It is translating into pain and discomfort what the spiritual field has already captured and could not fully process. Energetic pain is not mystical in the folkloric sense. It is concrete. It simply acts on a level that traditional medical methods do not measure. Imagine an antenna picking up more channels than it can process. The signal becomes distorted. The image fails. The same happens with the sensitive body. When it receives too many stimuli, it loses balance. This instability is felt as tension, fatigue, or even symptoms similar to illness, but without direct physical origin. When there is no clarity about this dynamic, the chosen can develop a pattern of avoidance. Places with a lot of people, noisy meetings, or emotionally charged environments begin to provoke anxiety, even before entering. The body anticipates, creating sensations that seem like warnings. It is as if it says, "Attention, this will affect you." Not understanding these signals can lead to emotional exhaustion and even social isolation as a form of involuntary protection. The first step to dealing with this sensitivity is to recognize that it exists. It is not a weakness, much less something wrong with mental health. It is a natural functioning of a more open and receptive energy field. This condition requires learning. Just as someone with perfect pitch needs to learn to cope with intense sounds, the chosen needs to develop tools to filter and organize what they perceive, preventing the body from accumulating overload. This awareness changes everything. When you understand that pain is not an enemy, but a messenger, fear diminishes. The symptom ceases to be merely an inconvenience and becomes a sign of necessary adjustment. If the body feels weight, perhaps it's time to withdraw from certain environments. If there is constant tension, it may indicate that the energetic field is absorbing external emotions. This conscious reading allows you to act before overload becomes debilitating. Living with spiritual sensitivity doesn't have to mean living in constant suffering. Understanding one's own functioning is what transforms invisible pain into a guide for self-care. When the chosen accepts that their body is a radar, they begin to treat it as such, respecting moments of pause, choosing environments more carefully, and strengthening energetic defenses. This attitude does not eliminate sensitivity, but prevents it from becoming an unbearable burden. What once seemed confusion becomes clarity. The weight the body carries stops being a mystery and becomes a map of where and how energy moves. It is at this point that the chosen stops feeling like a victim of their own sensitivity and begins to be its conductor. The pain, then, does not vanish magically, but loses the power to destabilize completely. And that is the beginning of energetic freedom. Of the chosen is not like that of everyone else. It has a more permeable energy field, as if it were a window always open to the vibrations around. While most people only perceive the environment, the sensitive absorbs part of it. This happens even without intention, because this trait is part of their nature and is linked to the purpose of their spiritual journey. This openness, which seems invisible, is like a finely tuned sensor for subtle frequencies. The chosen does not need someone to speak to know that there is sadness in a place, tension in a group, or joy in a gathering. He feels. These impressions reach the body in the form of physical and emotional reactions, such as shivers, deep sighs, shoulder pressure, or even a tightness in the chest. It is the vibrational field translating signals for the body. When the environment is charged, the body of the sensitive reacts as if it were living that emotion, even if it is not theirs. That is why, after certain encounters or visits, the person may return home exhausted, even without physical effort. What happened was an intense exchange of energy. The field received too much information and did not have time to process them adequately, turning the excess into fatigue and discomfort. In places where there are conflicts, discussions, or suffering, the impact is even quicker. The dense energy seems to infiltrate the subtle field, generating immediate weight. In such cases, the sensitive may feel pains with no apparent cause, sudden mood changes, or even sudden drowsiness. These reactions are not exaggeration or drama. They are real responses of a system that is trying to deal with a heavier load than it can bear at the moment. The difference between the body of a sensitive and that of an ordinary person lies in the intensity and speed of this perception. While many naturally filter the energies of the environment, the chosen receives them almost without barrier. This mechanism is not a defect, it is a natural resource. However, without understanding and management, it becomes a source of constant wear. It is like having a very sharp ear and living in a noisy place. The problem is not the sensitivity itself, but the lack of preparation to deal with it. The body of the sensitive is designed to capture, but also needs to learn to release what is not theirs. When this care is absent, external energies accumulate in the field, creating a sense of overload. This explains why physical rest, in many cases, is not enough to restore disposition. Over time, those who do not understand this dynamic begin to create unconscious habits to protect themselves. Avoiding certain places, limiting meetings, maintaining physical distances are natural strategies the body finds to reduce exposure. However, without clarity, these choices can be interpreted as isolation or social withdrawal, when in fact, they are attempts to preserve energetic balance. Recognizing this functioning is liberating. By understanding that the body is not inventing symptoms, but responding to real stimuli, the chosen stops fighting against their nature and begins to work with it. This shift in perspective transforms the relationship with one's own sensitivity. Instead of feeling fragile, the sensitive realizes they possess a powerful instrument. They just need to learn to tune it. The energy field, when balanced, is capable of sensing and filtering without overloading the body. This is the goal of learning, to allow perception to remain sharp, but for the organism not to pay the price with constant pain and fatigue. And that begins with awareness, with attention to signals, and with the choice to create practices that strengthen and organize this unique system. When the sensitive understands their own functioning, the environment stops being an invisible threat. They learn to navigate through different places without bringing home the weight of every energy they encountered. Life becomes lighter, and sensitivity becomes an ally. This is the foundation for turning what was once a burden into a tool for purpose and genuine connection. The body always speaks, but not everyone knows how to listen. For the chosen, signals of energetic overload do not arrive as mere discomforts. They manifest intensely and often, suddenly. A headache can appear for no apparent reason. The chest can feel tight for no clinical cause, and fatigue can arise even after a good night's sleep. These signals are messages from the subtle field requesting immediate attention. The first difference noticed is the change in the body's rhythm. The sensitive one perceives that, in some environments or after certain encounters, energy runs out quickly. It is not just physical wear, but a weight that seems to come from outside. It is as if the body were processing something that does not belong to it. A kind of energetic information captured without proper filters. Back and shoulder pain is one of the most common signs. It is not linked to a specific physical effort, but to an accumulation of energetic tension. The weight seems to concentrate in the upper areas of the body, where there is greater interaction with the emotional field. At the same time, the mind can become confused, with difficulty concentrating or organizing thoughts, as if an internal fog was blocking clarity. Sleep is also affected. Instead of restful, it can become restless, with frequent awakenings or intense dreams. The body wakes up without vitality, as if it had worked all night. This happens because, even while sleeping, the sensitive's energetic field remains active, interacting with the surrounding vibrations. Without proper protection, this activity consumes more energy than it replenishes. Mood is another important gauge. Irritation without reason, sudden sadness, or anxiety that arises from nowhere can be signs of overload. It is essential to observe whether these emotional states appear after certain environments or contacts. When there is no logical cause, it is likely that they are reflections of external energies absorbed, and not emotions originally theirs. In some cases, the body reacts physically to this energetic saturation. This can include palpitations, sudden heat, chills, or a feeling of weight in the stomach. These manifestations vary from person to person, but all have something in common. They arise without a clear medical explanation and change according to the quality of the environment or interactions experienced. Learning to identify these signals is like learning a new language. At first, the sensitive one may be confused and think everything is physical or everything is emotional. But with attention and recording, patterns begin to appear. The body becomes a map, and each symptom indicates a point where energy is being affected. This awareness is the key to acting before wear becomes intense. Another important clue lies in the time it takes for the body to recover. Physical fatigue usually passes with rest, but energetic fatigue persists until the field reorganizes. This can take hours or even days, depending on the intensity of exposure and the sensitive's ability to cleanse energetically. Recognizing this difference prevents frustration and helps choose the right care. The sensitive who learns to differentiate these signals stops feeling like a hostage to what they do not understand. They begin to act strategically, creating routines and care that strengthen their field and reduce overload. Over time, the body stops being just a receptor and becomes an ally, warning in advance when it is time to protect oneself or withdraw from an environment. This careful reading of one's own body is one of the foundations for sensibility to stop being a burden. When the chosen understands their signals, they stop ignoring what they feel and begin to treat their own energy with respect. This not only preserves their physical and emotional health, but also expands their ability to fulfill their purpose with clarity and strength. Energetic overload does not happen by chance. It is the result of interactions, environments, and habits that directly impact the subtle field. The chosen, having a more open perception, feels these influences more intensely. Understanding the causes is essential to learn how to protect oneself and keep one's energy balanced, avoiding the body and mind paying the price for something that could have been prevented. One of the most common causes lies in living in charged environments. Places with frequent quarrels, tension in the air, or a lot of bustle accumulate dense vibrations. The sensitive, upon entering there, absorbs part of that energy, even without realizing it. It's like breathing heavy air. The body has to work harder to process what was captured, and that extra effort translates into physical and emotional symptoms. Constant contact with emotionally unstable people also overloads the field. When someone is always anxious, irritable, or pessimistic, they release vibrations that influence those nearby. The chosen, by natural empathy, tends to pick up and even try to balance these energies. That leaves them exhausted, as if carrying a weight that isn't theirs, wearing down both body and mind. Prolonged stress situations, even if they don't involve other people, also affect the energetic field. Constant worries, too many tasks, or lack of rest generate an internal vibration that destabilizes the system itself. In this state, the field becomes more vulnerable, like a weakened barrier, facilitating the entry of external influences that amplify the existing overload. Sudden changes in the energetic environment are another cause. The sensitive who moves from a calm location to a loud or tense environment feels the impact like a shock. This rapid transition requires immediate adaptation of the field, which does not always happen smoothly. The result can be headaches, nausea, sudden fatigue, or discomfort hard to explain. Even consuming information can generate overload. Negative news, conflict-filled social networks, and emotionally charged content impact the chosen's field. The brain processes the images and words, but the energetic field absorbs the associated vibration. This creates an internal alert state that wears down the nervous system and interferes with vibrational balance. Natural factors also have influence. Abrupt climate changes, atmospheric pressure, moon phases, and variations in the Earth's magnetic field can amplify sensitivity. The chosen, more attuned to the environment, captures these changes as invisible waves that affect their body and mood, even without an apparent physical cause. Finally, there is the lack of energetic care itself. When the sensitive does not practice cleansing, strengthening, and organizing methods for the field, They accumulate vibrational residues like dust in a filter. This buildup, over time, becomes so heavy that any new external load causes imbalance, generating more intense and longer-lasting symptoms. Recognizing the causes of overload is the first step to preventing its effects. The chosen who understands where the weight they feel comes from can act before it turns into physical pain or extreme exhaustion. Awareness opens space for care, and care strengthens not only the body, but the entire energetic system. When energetic overload is not recognized or cared for, it begins to infiltrate all areas of life. The body reacts silently at first, but over time the signs become clearer. For the chosen, this doesn't just mean feeling physical discomfort. It's as if the entire internal system loses its natural rhythm, affecting mind, emotions, and even relationships. In the physical realm, symptoms can range from recurrent pains to persistent fatigue. Many report waking up exhausted, even after a whole night's sleep. This constant fatigue does not come from muscular effort, but from the energy spent to process and try to filter external loads. Migraines, migratory muscle pains, and changes in appetite also become frequent, creating a cycle that hinders full recovery. The emotional field also suffers. Energetic overload can generate irritability, crying spells, a sense of discouragement, or anxiety with no apparent cause. The sensitive person begins to perceive themselves reacting intensely to small situations, which increases the sense of instability. This exhausting emotional state, if not treated, weakens the energetic system even more, leaving the person more vulnerable to new influences. In the mental realm, the most common consequence is difficulty concentrating. Thoughts become scattered, and simple tasks seem to require excessive effort. This mental confusion isn't laziness or lack of interest, but a direct result of a congested subtle field. The mind spends energy trying to deal with external vibrations, leaving little for daily activities. Personal relationships can also be affected. The overwhelmed chosen can become more reactive, impatient, or withdrawn. Friends and family may not understand the behavioral change, and without understanding the real cause, may interpret it as coldness, disinterest, or detachment. This creates frictions and even breakups that could be avoided with recognition of the energetic state. Another common effect is the loss of spiritual motivation. When the field is saturated, practices that previously brought peace and clarity, such as prayer, meditation, or spiritual reading, may seem heavy or ineffective. This natural pullback isn't a lack of faith, but a result of the field's difficulty harmonizing with elevated energies, while it is laden with density. The physical body, in prolonged response to energetic stress, can develop more complex signs. Sleep problems, hormonal changes, and decreased immunity are some examples. It's as if the organism were constantly in a state of defense, spending energy to deal with invisible threats. This constant state of alert weakens the natural capacity for recovery and regeneration. There is also an impact on the sense of purpose. The sensitive may begin to question their choices, doubt their abilities, and feel disconnected from their own path. This loss of clarity is a reflection of the saturated field, which prevents a clear perception of one's intentions and spiritual direction. It's like trying to see a horizon through foggy glass. In many cases, the sensitive adapts to living in this state, believing that it's just part of their nature to feel so much and carry so much weight. However, living with constant overload drains vitality, shortens patience, and reduces the ability to see beauty and purpose in simple things. Gradually, life loses color and becomes merely an exercise in endurance. Recognizing that these effects are not normal is fundamental. Energetic overload is not something to be endured indefinitely. It is a clear sign that the field needs attention, cleansing, and reorganization. When the sensitive begins to care for this invisible layer, physical, emotional, and mental symptoms begin to align, and life force flows again with strength and balance. Getting here is more than learning about invisible pains. It is recognizing that what you feel is not weakness, exaggeration, or invention. It is your body and your vibrational field, showing that there is something beyond the physical, something that asks for care and awareness. This is the first step to stop carrying everything alone and to transform sensitivity into clarity. Understanding that energetic pains have real causes changes everything. The weight in the chest, the pressure on the head, the exhaustion with no apparent reason. All these signals tell a story about how your field interacts with the world. When you give them a name, the confusion gives way to an understanding that starts to reorganize your internal system. You are not a victim of your sensitivity. It isn't here to punish you, but to guide you. The problem isn't feeling, but not knowing what to do with what you feel. That is why knowledge is so powerful. It transforms a disorganized field into a tuned system, capable of filtering, choosing, and directing the energy it receives. Remember that your subtle field is alive. It responds to what you think, feel, and live. Taking care of it isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's like tuning an instrument so it produces music rather than noise. With practice and attention, you can stop being a sponge for others' pains and become a conscious channel for what really matters. Sensitivity, when understood and balanced, becomes a gift. It opens doors to deeper connections, clearer intuitions, and an unwavering sense of purpose. But this only happens when you decide to take care of yourself, respecting your limits and nourishing your field with healthy energy. If this message spoke to you, share in the comments what part stood out most to you. I want to know which part made the most sense for your journey. This exchange helps strengthen not only you, but all chosen ones, who are also learning to cope with their invisible pains.